Don't you dare die on me, Elena. The roar tore across the empty stretch of Miami Beach just as dawn began turning the Atlantic silver. Luca Moretti, the most feared Mafia boss on the East Coast, dropped to his knees in the wet sand and pulled his curvy secretary into his arms. Elena Marquez was barely breathing. Her white dress was soaked, one shoe was missing, and strands of dark hair clung to her pale face. Luca had walked through gunfire without blinking, and not buried traitors without remorse, and made powerful men forget how to speak with a single look. But when Elena's head fell against his chest, something inside him cracked. "Call the doctor." "Now," he ordered. His bodyguard reached for his phone, but Luca grabbed the front of his jacket. "Not an ambulance. My doctor, and locked down every road within 10 miles. 20 minutes earlier, Elena had been the woman everyone ignored at the Moretti Foundation gala. She was 32, full-figured, intelligent, and painfully aware of how quickly wealthy people judged a woman who did not look like the models beside them. She had spent 3 years managing Luca's impossible schedule, correcting contracts before his lawyers noticed mistakes, and remembering every detail he pretended not to care about. She knew which meetings made him tense, which coffee he drank after sleepless nights, and which charity requests he approved in secret. Yet that evening, beneath the chandeliers of the Ocean Crown Hotel, Luca's glamorous business associates had treated her like misplaced furniture. Vanessa Hale, the daughter of a powerful investor, had looked Elena up and down before smiling for the crowd. "Luca, surely your secretary could have found something more flattering." A few guests laughed. Elena's cheeks burned, but she kept her shoulders straight. She had heard worse from an ex-boyfriend who told her no successful man would ever choose a woman her size. She had heard it from store clerks, relatives, strangers, and every polished woman who assumed softness meant weakness. Elena simply lifted her tablet and said, "Mr. Moretti's midnight acquisition will collapse if the revised numbers are not delivered in 12 minutes. I chose to finish my work." Vanessa's smile tightened. Across the ballroom, Luca stopped speaking. He stood 6'3" in a black tailored suit, broad-shouldered and controlled, with the cold stillness of a man who never needed to raise his voice. Rich, untouchable, and emotionally sealed behind years of betrayal, Luca trusted numbers, loyalty, and fear. He did not trust affection. His father had been murdered by someone welcomed into their home, and Luca had built his empire on one rule: never give anyone the power to wound you twice. But his gaze remained on Elena, not on her dress, not on the people laughing, on the way her fingers trembled while her voice did not. He crossed the ballroom, took the tablet from her hands and faced Vanessa. "She is the reason half the people in this room still have contracts with me." Silence fell. Vanessa gave a nervous laugh. "I was only joking." Luca's expression did not change. Then explain why no one important found it funny. Elena should have felt victorious, but fear moved through her instead. Minutes earlier, she had found a sealed envelope inside Luca's private folder. It contained photographs of him leaving his penthouse, a map of the gala exits, and one sentence typed in red: "By sunrise, Moretti loses the woman who knows too much." Elena had slipped the envelope into her purse before anyone saw it. She planned to warn Luca privately, but a waiter whispered that Luca's mother had collapsed near the beach entrance. Elena ran without thinking. There was no collapsed woman outside, only darkness, ocean wind, and a black SUV waiting beyond the hotel lights. Now on the sand, Luca pressed 2 fingers beneath Elena's jaw and found the faintest pulse. His rage became frighteningly quiet. He removed his jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders, and brushed sand from her face with a gentleness none of his men had ever seen. "Who did this to you?" he whispered. Elena's eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved, but only one broken word escaped. "Inside." Luca looked down and saw her hand clenched around something. He carefully opened her fingers. Resting in her palm was his family's black onyx signet ring, a ring worn only by the 3 men Luca trusted most. Then Elena's eyes opened, filled with terror, and she breathed. "One of them is standing behind you." "Behind me?" Luca repeated, his voice dropping into the calm tone that made armed men reconsider their loyalties. Elena's trembling gaze shifted past his shoulder toward Matteo Rizzi, Luca's chief of security and one of only 3 men authorized to wear the Moretti family ring. Matteo stood 10 feet away with his phone still in his hand. his face unreadable beneath the pale morning light. Luca did not turn immediately. Instead, he tightened his jacket around Elena and said, "Matteo, put your weapon on the sand." The bodyguard froze. "Boss, she's confused. She nearly drowned." Luca finally looked over his shoulder. "Then you have nothing to fear." Waves crashed behind them as Matteo slowly removed his pistol and placed it near his shoes. The other guards watched in silence. No one questioned Luca Moretti twice, especially when his eyes held that cold, measured fury. Elena tried to speak, but a sharp cough stole her breath. Luca supported her head against his chest, lowering his voice only for her. "Save your strength. You're safe now." She looked at him with disbelief. "I found the ring in the car," she whispered. "The man who grabbed me wore gloves. I pulled it from the console before they pushed me out." Luca's gaze sharpened. The ring did not prove Matteo had attacked her. It proved someone wanted Luca to believe he had. Before he could ask another question, 2 black vehicles sped onto the service road bordering the beach. Luca's private physician, Dr. Naomi Grant, stepped out carrying an emergency bag. Luca lifted Elena himself, ignoring the sand soaking his trousers and the stunned looks from his men. She was softer and heavier than the women usually photographed beside him, but he held her without strain or hesitation, as though the entire world had narrowed to the fragile rhythm of her breathing. When Matteo moved closer, Luca stopped him with one look. "You ride separately." Inside the armoured SUV, Dr. Grant checked Elena's pulse, examined the bruise along her wrist, and placed an oxygen mask over her face. "She has a sedative in her system," the doctor said. "Not enough to kill her, but enough to make the ocean do the rest." Luca's jaw tightened. "How long?" "Another 15 minutes in the water, and we would be having a different conversation." Elena heard him inhale slowly. She expected rage, shouting, perhaps an order that would end someone's life. Instead, Luca took her cold hand between both of his and rubbed warmth into her fingers. "Look at me," he said. Her eyes opened. "You came back for the folder," she murmured. "I came back for you." The answer unsettled her more than the danger had. For 3 years, Luca had treated her with respect, but always at a distance. He never asked about the lunches she skipped to send money to her younger sister. He never mentioned the nights she stayed late, because going home to an empty apartment felt worse than working. Yet now his thumb moved gently over her knuckles, and his expression held something she had never seen in him before. Fear. They reached Luca's oceanfront safe house 12 miles north of Miami. Within minutes, the estate was sealed. Phones were collected, security access was suspended, and every person who had attended the gala was ordered to remain available for questioning. Luca entered the main study with Elena resting on a leather couch beneath a warm blanket. Vanessa Hale was already there, furious and still wearing her silver gown. "You locked down my father's hotel over a secretary?" she demanded. Luca crossed the room without hurrying. "Her name is Elena Marquez." Vanessa folded her arms. "You are risking a $200 million alliance for an employee who probably wandered onto the beach drunk." Elena flinched, but Luca stepped between them, blocking Vanessa's view of her. "The alliance is cancelled." Vanessa's confidence vanished. "You cannot be serious." Luca turned to his attorney. "Inform her father that anyone who insults a woman under my protection has no place in my business." Elena stared at him. "Under your protection?" Luca looked back at her, his face still hard but his voice quiet. "Unless you refuse it." He was giving her a choice. That surprised her more than the public defense. Before she could answer, a guard entered carrying Elena's recovered purse. Inside was the red-lettered threat, the beach map, and a flash drive she had never seen before. Luca inserted it into an isolated laptop. A bank ledger appeared, showing millions being diverted from the midnight acquisition into a hidden account. Elena sat up despite the doctor's warning. "That transfer uses your authorization code." Luca studied the screen. "Only 4 people know that code." 5, Elena corrected. "I know it because I changed the final digit last week." Luca looked at her sharply. Elena swallowed. "Someone tried to access your accounts after midnight. I altered the code and said nothing because I wanted to see who would try again." A second file opened automatically. Grainy security footage filled the screen, showing Elena being dragged through the hotel's service corridor by a masked man. As Luca leaned closer, The man turned just enough for the camera to capture a distinctive scar behind his ear. Matteo went pale. Luca recognized it too. The scar belonged to his younger brother, Adrian Moretti, the one man Luca believed had died 7 years ago. For 7 years, Luca had kept Adrian's photograph locked inside a drawer he never opened. His younger brother had supposedly died when a warehouse exploded during a failed peace meeting in Havana, leaving behind a burned watch, 3 bodies, and enough blood to make identification impossible. Luca had blamed himself ever since. Now the security footage showed Adrian alive, dragging Elena through a hotel corridor, as though the past had climbed out of its grave to punish them both. "Run the image again," Luca ordered. His attorney replayed the clip frame by frame. The scar behind the masked man's ear was unmistakable, a pale crescent Adrian had received at 14 when he pulled Luca away from a knife fight. Elena watched Luca's face turn colder, but she noticed the pain beneath it. His hand rested beside the laptop, completely still, except for the slight curl of his fingers. "He may have been forced," she said softly. Vanessa laughed from across the study. "Or your precious secretary is staging this." Luca turned so slowly that Vanessa stopped smiling. "Leave. My father will destroy your acquisition. Then he can explain why his hotel cameras were disabled for 11 minutes while Elena was taken." Vanessa's eyes flickered toward the screen. It lasted only a second, but Elena saw it. So did Luca. He stepped closer. "You knew the cameras were down." Vanessa lifted her chin. "I know how my father's property operates." "No," Elena said from the couch. Her voice was weak but steady. "You knew the exact time." Silence filled the room. Vanessa's expression hardened. "You should be grateful anyone noticed you disappeared." Luca moved between them before Elena could answer. "Use her name." Vanessa stared at him. "Excuse me?" "Her name is Elena Marquez. You will use it with respect, or you will not speak in my house." The words were quiet, but every guard straightened. Vanessa reached for her purse. Matteo blocked the door. Luca's gaze shifted to him. "Search it." Vanessa slapped Matteo's hand away, but he caught the purse and emptied it onto the table. A lipstick, a phone, a silver compact, and a key card slid across the polished wood. Elena recognized the card immediately. "That opens the hotel service elevator." Luca picked it up. The printed access number matched the corridor where she had been taken. Vanessa's face lost color. "It was planted." "By whom?" Luca asked. "Adrian." The name came too quickly. Luca's eyes narrowed. "You saw him?" Vanessa said nothing. Elena forced herself to stand, but dizziness made the room tilt. Luca reached her before anyone else, one arm circling her waist while his other hand steadied her shoulder. "Sit down." "I'm not helpless," she whispered. "I know." His grip softened without disappearing. "That is why I am asking, not ordering." Elena looked at him, startled by the restraint in a man accustomed to controlling every room he entered. She sat, but kept her eyes on Vanessa. "The person in the car said Luca would sign the acquisition by midnight," Elena said. "He said the transfer would make the Moretti empire eat itself." Luca turned toward the ledger. The stolen funds were not leaving his organization. They were being redirected into shell companies connected to Moretti shipping routes. Whoever controlled those accounts could make it appear Luca was stealing from his own captains. By midnight, the family council would see him as a traitor. By dawn, his allies would become enemies. Matteo checked his phone. "Boss, 3 captains are already demanding an emergency vote." "How long?" Luca asked. 6 hours. A phone began ringing inside Vanessa's purse. Everyone looked at it. The screen displayed a blocked number. Luca answered on speaker. At first there was only ocean wind. Then a man spoke. "Still cleaning up after me, brother." Luca's face went blank. Elena felt his hand tighten around the back of her chair. "Adrian," a low laugh came through the phone. "You sound disappointed I survived. You left Elena in the water." "No, I left her where you would find her." "There is a difference." Luca's restraint cracked for the first time. "You drugged her. She stole something that belonged to me." Elena looked at the flash drive. Adrian continued, "Ask your loyal secretary why she never told you her father kept books for the Serrano family." Luca looked at Elena. She went still. The Serranos were the rival organization blamed for the explosion that had supposedly killed Adrian. Vanessa smiled as if she had been waiting for this moment. "There it is," she said. "Your trusted employee is the daughter of your enemy." Elena's eyes filled, but she did not look away from Luca. My father died trying to leave them. I changed my name to protect my sister. Adrian's voice sharpened. She is lying. Her father did not die. He works for me. The study doors burst open. 2 guards entered, holding an older man with silver hair and blood on his collar. Elena rose so fast the blanket fell to the floor. Dad? The man lifted his bruised face toward her. Before anyone could move, he looked at Luca and whispered, "Do not trust the ring. Adrian is not the one who ordered her death." Then a red laser dot appeared on Elena's chest. The laser dot climbed from Elena's chest toward her heart. Luca moved before anyone else could breathe. He wrapped both arms around her and drove them behind the stone fireplace as a shot shattered the window, spraying glass across the study. Elena landed beneath him, protected by the full weight of his body, while another shot struck the wall where she had been standing. "Lights out!" Matteo shouted. The safe house dropped into darkness, and guards rushed toward the terrace. Luca ignored the chaos. He cupped Elena's face and searched her eyes. "Are you hurt?" "No," she whispered, struggling for breath. "My father." Luca looked across the room. 2 guards had pulled Rafael Marquez behind an overturned table. He was alive. Only then did Luca rise, keeping one hand around Elena's waist, as though letting go might make her disappear. "Take them both to the secure room." Elena gripped his sleeve. "Not until he tells us the truth." Her voice trembled, but her chin remained lifted. Luca studied her for 1 tense second, then nodded. He trusted almost no one, yet he was choosing to trust her in front of every man in the room. The guards sealed the steel shutters, while Matteo's team searched the dunes beyond the property. Vanessa sat frozen near the desk, her arrogance replaced by fear. Raphael pressed a handkerchief to his split lip and looked at his daughter. "I wanted you far from this life, Elena." Tears filled her eyes. "You let me believe you were dead for 9 years. Because the people hunting me knew you were my weakness." Luca's expression hardened. "Who ordered the sniper?" Raphael looked toward the laptop. "The same man who arranged the Havana explosion. Adrian did not betray you. He survived because I pulled him through a drainage tunnel before the warehouse burned." Luca went perfectly still. The guilt he had carried for 7 years flickered behind his eyes. Then why did he take Elena? "He did not take her from the hotel," Raphael said. "He intercepted the vehicle after she was abducted. He tried to recover the flash drive and get her away from the real kidnappers. When she fought him, one of them injected her. Adrian left her inside a lifeguard station and called your security line. Someone moved her into the water before you arrived." Elena touched the bruise on her wrist. The memory returned in fragments, a masked man arguing with another voice, hands pulling her from the SUV, and someone saying the beach would make her death look accidental. "The second man wore a blue cufflink," she said. Everyone turned toward the polished table. A single blue sapphire cufflink rested beside the laptop. It belonged to Luca's attorney. Gabriel Voss had removed his jacket during the lockdown, and one cuff was empty. Gabriel slowly backed toward the door. Luca stepped in front of Elena. "You handled the acquisition," he said. "You knew the authorization code, the hotel exits, and every weakness in my family." Gabriel gave a thin smile. "Knowing your weaknesses is what you paid me for." Matteo reached for him, but Gabriel pressed a hidden switch beneath the bookshelf. Smoke poured from the ceiling, alarms screamed, and the study doors locked between them. Through the haze, Gabriel escaped into a private passage only Luca's inner circle knew existed. When the ventilation cleared the room, Elena was coughing against Luca's chest. He removed his shirt jacket and placed it around her shoulders, then knelt in front of her despite the guards watching. "I brought him into my home," he said, his voice rough with self-blame. "I gave him access to everything." Elena saw the old wound beneath the powerful man, the fear that trusting anyone would always end in betrayal. She touched his bruised cheek. "He fooled all of us. That does not make you responsible for what he chose." Luca looked at her hand against his face as if no one had touched him gently in years. "You almost died because of me. I survived because you came back." His control nearly broke. He covered her hand with his, closed his eyes for one brief second, then pressed his forehead against her knuckles. When Elena began apologizing for hiding her father's connection to the Serranos, Luca looked up. Do not apologize for surviving people who taught you to be afraid. Raphael inserted the flash drive into the isolated laptop and entered a password Elena recognized as her childhood address. A hidden folder opened. Inside were banking records, photographs, and a video from the night of the Havana explosion. The footage showed Gabriel locking the warehouse doors, but he was not alone. Beside him stood Charles Hale, Vanessa's father and the investor financing Luca's midnight acquisition. Vanessa covered her mouth. The partnership was not meant to strengthen Luca's empire. It was designed to transfer control of every Moretti shipping route to Hale and Voss the moment the family council removed Luca. Matteo checked the time. The emergency vote has been moved forward. 90 minutes. Luca closed the acquisition file. Cancel the deal. His attorney had warned that walking away would cost him hundreds of millions, but Luca did not hesitate. I will burn every contract before I let them use Elena again. Suddenly the laptop screen went black. A live video replaced the evidence. Adrian appeared inside the Moretti council chamber, surrounded by armed captains. Behind him, Gabriel held Luca's mother at gunpoint. Adrian looked directly into the camera and said, "Brother, do not come here unless Elena is beside you. She is the only person in the world who can prove which one of us is lying." Luca stared at the live feed while Gabriel pressed the gun closer to his mother's temple. 90 minutes had become 42. The Moretti council chamber was filling with captains who believed Luca had stolen from them, and Charles Hale was preparing to take control of every shipping route before midnight. "You are not going," Luca said without looking away from the screen. Elena stood beside him in his jacket, pale from the sedative but steady on her feet. "Adrian asked for me because I can prove who altered the accounts. That is exactly why Gabriel wants you there. And your mother is there because he knows you will come anyway." Luca turned, his expression hard enough to silence the room. "I found you half dead in the ocean less than an hour ago. I will not deliver you to the man who put you there." Elena stepped closer until only inches separated them. "Then do not deliver me. Stand beside me." The words struck deeper than any command. Luca had spent years believing protection meant control, locked doors, armed guards, and decisions made for everyone else. Elena was asking him for something more difficult: trust. Raphael opened the hidden ledger and pointed to a sequence of authorization marks. "The records can expose Hale and Gabriel, but only Elena can explain the code she changed. Without her testimony, the captains will call this fabricated." Matteo checked the weapons of the remaining loyal guards. "There are at least 20 armed men inside the chamber. Some are confused, some are bought. We cannot know which is which." Luca looked at Elena again. "If we enter, you stay behind me." She shook her head. "Beside you." His jaw tightened, but after a long moment he gave one slow nod. They left the safe house in 3 armored vehicles, racing south beneath a sky darkening with storm clouds. Inside the lead SUV, Luca wrapped a fresh blanket around Elena and fastened the seatbelt himself. His hands were gentle, but she could feel the fury beneath them. "You are shaking," she said. "I am angry." "No, you are afraid." No one had ever spoken to Luca Moretti that directly, and remained close enough to hear his answer. He looked through the rain-streaked window. "I was too late for my father. I believed I was too late for Adrian. When I saw you on that beach, I thought history had come to collect another debt." Elena placed her hand over his. "You were not too late." Luca turned his palm beneath hers and held on. "When this is over, you are leaving Miami." Her fingers stiffened. "That sounds like an order. It is an attempt to keep you alive. By sending me away from my job, my family, and every choice I made for myself." Luca saw the old hurt in her face, the years of being treated as though other people knew what was best for her. His voice softened. "Then tell me what you choose." Elena met his eyes. "I choose to finish this with you." The council chamber occupied the top floor of the Moretti Shipping Exchange, a marble building overlooking Biscayne Bay. Luca entered through the main doors, with Elena at his right side, Matteo at his left, and Raphael carrying the encrypted drive. Conversation stopped. More than 30 captains stood around the long black table. Vanessa was beside her father, her face streaked with tears. At the far end, Gabriel held Luca's mother, Sophia, by the shoulder. Adrian stood near them, unarmed but surrounded. Charles Hale smiled as if victory had already been signed. "You brought the secretary," he said. Luca's gaze turned lethal. "Her name is Elena Marquez." Charles gave a dismissive laugh. A frightened employee does not outweigh financial records. Elena stepped forward before Luca could stop her. "These are not your records, they are mine." She connected the drive to the council screen and entered the changed authorization code. The hidden transactions appeared, followed by timestamps proving every theft had occurred after Gabriel accessed Luca's legal server. Murmurs moved through the captains. Gabriel tightened his grip on Sophia. Convenient evidence from the daughter of a Serrano bookkeeper. Elena's father stepped into the light. Then hear it from the man who built the shell accounts under Hale's orders. Charles turned pale. Raphael displayed signed transfers, recordings and photographs linking Hale to the Havana explosion. The room shifted. Captains who had stood behind Charles moved away. Vanessa stared at her father in horror. "You told me Adrian killed those men," Charles snapped. "I did what was necessary to protect our future." Adrian finally spoke. "You tried to kill me because I discovered the same accounts 7 years ago." Gabriel glanced toward an emergency exit. Luca noticed. "It is over." "Not yet," Gabriel said. He pushed Sophia toward Adrian, drew a second weapon, and aimed it directly at Elena. Luca stepped in front of her, but Elena did not hide. She lifted the tablet and pressed one final command. Every screen in the chamber began broadcasting Gabriel's confession from the safe house, captured when he admitted knowing Luca's weaknesses. At the same moment, the building's security locks engaged. Gabriel's escape route sealed with a steel door. The captains turned on him. Charles lunged for the drive, but Vanessa blocked him. "No more," she said, choosing truth over her father. Matteo disarmed Charles while Adrian pulled Sophia to safety. For one breath, victory seemed complete. Then Gabriel fired. Luca twisted toward Elena, and the shot struck him high in the shoulder. He fell against her as the chamber erupted. Elena caught him, dropping to her knees beneath his weight. "Luca, stay with me." His hand closed around hers. Across the room, Gabriel seized the fallen weapon and aimed again. Elena looked up, no longer ashamed, no longer afraid, and placed herself between the gunman and the man who had chosen her before the whole world. Gabriel smiled and pulled the trigger. The gun clicked. Gabriel pulled the trigger again, but nothing happened. Elena remained in front of Luca, one hand pressed against his wounded shoulder and the other stretched protectively across his chest. Matteo had quietly removed the magazine when Gabriel was distracted by the evidence on the screens. For the first time that night, fear appeared in Gabriel's eyes. Adrian crossed the chamber in 3 fast steps and knocked the weapon from his hand. 2 loyal captains restrained Gabriel while Matteo secured Charles Hale beside him. The room fell silent except for Luca's uneven breathing. Elena turned immediately, her courage giving way to panic as she cradled his face. "Stay with me. You promised you were not too late." Luca opened his eyes and managed a faint smile. "I do not remember promising." "Then promise now." His hand rose weakly and covered hers. "I promise." Sophia Moretti knelt beside them, tearing a strip of fabric from her sleeve to help Elena press the wound. The bullet had passed through the upper part of Luca's shoulder without striking anything vital, but blood darkened his shirt and his skin had gone pale. When the emergency medical team rushed into the chamber, Luca refused to release Elena's hand. Even as they lifted him onto the stretcher, his gaze remained fixed on her. "She comes with me," he ordered. No captain argued. Before leaving, Luca looked across the council table at the men who had doubted him. "The acquisition is cancelled. Every stolen dollar will be returned. Gabriel Voss and Charles Hale will answer for the conspiracy, the kidnapping, and the Havana attack." His voice weakened, but the authority in it did not. Then he looked at Elena, standing beside the stretcher in his oversized jacket, exhausted, bruised, and still refusing to collapse. "And anyone who questions her place beside me can surrender their position tonight." No one spoke. One by one, the captains lowered their heads in respect. At the hospital, doctors treated Luca, while Elena waited beneath the bright fluorescent lights with Sophia, Adrian, Raphael, and Matteo. The sedative had nearly left her system, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ocean, the laser on her chest, and Luca falling into her arms. She wrapped her hands around herself, trying to stop the shaking. Sophia sat beside her and gently placed Luca's folded coat over her shoulders. "He has spent years believing love was another word for weakness," she said. "Then you walked into his life and proved that protecting someone can make a man stronger." Elena looked down. "People like him do not choose women like me." Sophia's expression became firm. "My son did not stand in front of a bullet because of your dress size. He chose your loyalty, your courage, and the heart you kept kind even after the world was cruel to you. Do not insult his judgment by believing those people were right." Hours later, Luca woke in a private recovery room. Elena stood near the window, watching the first warm light rise over Miami. When he said her name, she turned so quickly that tears spilled down her cheeks. He reached for her, and she crossed the room. Luca touched the bruise on her wrist with careful fingers. "I should have noticed sooner." "You noticed when it mattered?" "No," his voice softened. "I noticed you long before that beach. I noticed every contract you saved, every employee you defended, every time you pretended an insult did not hurt. I kept my distance because wanting someone gave my enemies a target." Elena lowered her eyes. "They found one anyway." Luca lifted her chin. "They found the woman who saved my family and my empire." He shifted despite the pain and placed his feet on the floor. Elena tried to stop him, but he stood and faced her. "I will not send you away. I will not decide your future for you. But I am asking you to remain beside me, not as someone I own or someone I rescued." He took her hand. "Stay as the woman I trust more than anyone alive." Elena searched his face. "And when the danger is gone, then I will ask you to stay because I love you." Her breath caught. Luca had faced armed enemies with less fear than he showed in that confession. Elena smiled through her tears. "Then ask me." 6 months later, the Moretti Foundation reopened the Ocean Crown Ballroom under new ownership. Charles and Gabriel were awaiting trial, the stolen funds had been restored, and Adrian had returned to the family after years in hiding. Raphael entered witness protection with Elena's younger sister, finally free from the Serrano network. Before the same crowd that had once laughed at her, Elena walked into the ballroom wearing a deep blue gown chosen because she loved it, not because it made her appear smaller. Luca crossed the room, took her hand and kissed her knuckles. Then he introduced her as the Foundation's new director and the woman he intended to marry. No one laughed. Elena no longer stood behind him or hid in his shadow. She stood beside him in the warm golden light, respected, desired, and safe without ever changing the body the world had told her to apologize for. Luca had found her half dead on a cold beach, but she had awakened the part of him that had been buried for years. He gave her protection, and she gave him the courage to trust love again. Their story proved that real strength is not control. Real beauty does not require permission, and the right person will never ask you to shrink before choosing you. Would you have trusted Luca after everything Elena endured, or would you have walked away? Share your answer and subscribe to the channel for more powerful Mafia Boss stories about danger, loyalty, healing, and the kind of love that chooses you exactly as you are.